Hi, yogis. I'm Melissa. Thank you for joining me for this spring Yin Yoga practice today. Spring is such an exciting time of the year. It's when everything just seems fresh and new and alive with a million possibilities. It's a nice relief from the drudgery of winter and just a chance to renew our energy and to maybe start a new project or just take a new perspective on life. So before we begin, grab any props that you might have on hand. Ideally, you'd have a bolster, a blanket, and a couple of blocks. You can improvise a little bit here if need be. Pillows, towels, um, phone books, if anybody has phone books anymore, I don't know. And we'll modify and I'll offer some other suggestions for those who don't have the props. But we're going to begin in child's pose. So we're going to take the knees really wide apart. And if you have a bolster, place the bolster the long way between the legs. Okay. And again, we're going to take the knees really wide so that we can start getting into the hips. And then you're just going to lay down over that bolster and turn your head to one side and just rest here for a few moments. Arms just resting wherever it's comfortable. If you don't have a bolster, of course, you can just do this without the bolster. If you've got tight knees or ankles, you could try placing a rolled up blanket behind the knees to help support the knees, or roll it up and place it under the ankles if it's the ankles that give you trouble. Okay, so just making any modifications that you need to make yourself comfortable, because in Yin Yoga, we hold the poses a lot longer than we do in a typical Yang or Vinyasa yoga class. So just make sure that you can stay there for a bit and that you can be still. Okay, so resting here. I'll let you know when we're about halfway through so that you can turn your head the other way. Then just close your eyes. Start to connect with your breath. Expanding the inhales and exhales. Maybe even introducing a pause in between the breaths. So just suspending the breath for a moment at the top of the inhale and suspending the breath for a moment at the bottom of the exhale. So during our practice today, we're going to work quite a bit with the liver meridian line, since that is associated with spring. And the liver meridian line basically runs along the front of the torso and down the inside of the legs. So we're going to be doing some hip opening and inner thigh stretches for that. And then to balance that, we're also going to be working with the gallbladder meridian, and that runs all along the outside of the body, the side of the body, from the head down the torso and outside of the legs. And just let this practice be a chance for you to start to awaken along with Mother Nature, to renew your energy. Spring and summer create a lot of opportunity for activity. So we want that energy to be able to take on those new projects and hopefully some social gatherings this year for once. And next time you breathe in, just pick up your head and turn it the other direction, resting on the other cheek. And just remember that when we're practicing yin, we really want to try to be as still as possible in these shapes. And so sometimes we need to adjust a little bit to go deeper or to just be a little more safe with our practice. And that's fine, that's great. We're just mostly trying to avoid fidgeting when you're in a pose. So just settling the mind and the body. When your mind wanders to other things outside your practice, just return your awareness to your breath. Remember to expand the inhale and exhale, noticing that pause in between the breaths. And take 3 more full breaths here. And then start to walk your hands in. And then you can keep the bolster here as long as it's not in your way. We're just going to walk both hands way over to one side, finding that stretch in the side body. So you're keeping the hips at the heels and just feeling that stretch alongside the ribs. Just letting the head and neck relax. And then with your next inhale, walk the hands forward. And as you exhale, take them over to the other side. So walking them way over to the other side, feeling that stretch along the other side body. Again, relaxing the head and neck, breathing into those ribs. And with your next inhale, walk the hands forward again. And then we're going to come to our hands and knees. So go ahead and set the bolster aside if you were working with a bolster. Stack your shoulders over your wrists. Spread your fingers wide. Stack hips over knees. And then flatten the tops of the feet to the floor if you can. So we're just going to warm up the spine a little bit before our next yin shape. So moving through a couple of cat-cows here. As you inhale, you're going to start to lift your gaze. The tailbone lifts. Draw the shoulder blades back towards the hips. The belly drops. And then as you exhale, tuck the tailbone. Start to draw navel to spine. Arch the back body towards the sky and tuck the chin. Inhale, lifting the gaze, coming into your cow pose. Exhale, cat, arching the back. Just moving through a few more sets, finding your own pace, but trying to connect the movement to the breath, bringing your awareness to the spine as you move, and keeping the movement nice and slow. Let's do one more set. So with your next inhale, just coming back to that neutral spine. From here, we're going to come onto our bellies. Go ahead and lay down on your mat. We're going to come into seal, also known as Sphinx pose. So the shoulders should stack directly over the elbows. The elbows are kind of close in towards your body. Palms are flat on the mat. Your legs are active, at least for a moment. Press the tops of the feet into the floor. And then inhale, lift your heart, lift that front body. Draw the shoulders back. Keep your gaze down at the mat between your thumbs. And then relax the legs a little bit. But keep the heart lifted. Keep extending the breath. Maybe imagining that you're practicing outside in the grass and you can kind of rub your fingers into the grass and the warmth of the earth. Sun shining on your back. If you start to have any discomfort in your low back, a modification to this might be taking the elbows forward, interlacing your fingers, and resting your chin in the interlaced fingers. This takes you a little bit out of the back bend. Or you can always stack fists, rest your chin on the fists, or bringing the head all the way down. So we never want any pain in the low back. If you want more of a stretch, you could take the hands wide and lift the elbows. But again, just be mindful of the low back. If that gets uncomfortable after a bit, you can come back to the traditional variation of this pose. We often find ourselves at our edge in this practice. And really that just means where we start to get a little bit uncomfortable when we've held a shape for a while. So just breathe through it. As long as you're not in a place where it can cause injury, just breathe through the discomfort. Often transformation happens just before we're about to give up. So let's take 3 more breaths here. And then we're going to come all the way down. Stack your hands, rest your forehead on your stacked hands, and wiggle the hips a bit, side to side. And then bend your knees and windshield wiper the feet, side to side. Just a nice little release in that low back. Then release the feet down. Bring the hands in underneath your shoulders. And then push yourself up through table. We're going to come into another brief child's pose, this time with the knees together, hips to heels, and walk your hands back by your feet. You can either rest your head on the floor or even on a block if that's more comfortable for you. And then just take a few moments to breathe into this low back space. And if it feels good, you can wiggle the hips a little bit even. And then bring your hands forward. We're going to come back to table. And then take your blanket, especially if you're on a hard floor. We're just going to pad our knees a little bit here. If you're on carpet, you might not need to do this. Just make sure that there's something soft under your knees for this next part. And then coming to table again. From here, we're going to bring that left foot forward to the outside of the left hand. Okay? And then scoot your right knee back as much as you can. So we're looking for this big, long stretch through that right hip flexor in the front of the thigh. And then we're going to roll onto the outer edge of the left foot. Let that left knee open up. So that gets us into the inner thigh here. That's that liver meridian line. And then you can either stay here on your hands and just find some length through the front body. Or if you'd like to, you can lower down onto your elbows, or perhaps bringing elbows to a block. So find which version and what kind of support feels good to you, and then settle in here. Just try and relax the head and neck as much as possible. And then coming back to the breath. Just using the breath as a tool to keep the mind still. Allow the face to soften and relax. And again, anytime if you need to adjust, maybe your shoulders get tired and you want to come back to your hands, go ahead and make those adjustments, but just try not to fidget. Send your breath to those places that start to get a little cranky. And let's take 3 long, slow, full breaths here. And then if your hands aren't already on the floor, go ahead and bring your hands back to the mat. Bring the sole of that left foot back to the mat. We're just going to stretch that front leg for a moment. So straighten the front leg, hips move back. Maybe you lift the left toes and you bow forward. So just finding a nice stretch through the back of the leg and the hamstrings here. And then come forward again. And now we're going to heel toe that left foot towards the right edge of the mat. And then drop that left knee behind the left wrist. So we're coming into pigeon from here. So again, maybe walk that right knee back a little bit, trying to get your hips as close to the floor as possible. and each hip equal distance from the mat. So if you feel like you're leaning into this left hip, sometimes it's nice to place a block underneath it. I also often like to practice this pose with a bolster underneath me, and that just kind of helps support me and kind of keeps this left foot a little bit forward. Okay, so that's an option if you like. And then we're going to lower down again, resting your head on your stacked hands or block. And so ideally, we should be feeling the stretch kind of in the outside of that left glute and left hip. And then again, just find some stillness. Close your eyes, connect with the breath. Relax the shoulders as best you can. I'll just quickly show you a modification for this. So if your knees are uncomfortable or if you got it's too much on the hips, you can lay back this way. Same stretch, just from a different perspective. Okay, so that's another great alternative here. We're going to finish our practice today with a guided visualization and meditation. So we have that to look forward to. Just continue to imagine yourself outdoors as often as possible, noticing the different signs of spring, how everything seems to be a little bit more green. The flowers and plants and trees begin to bud. The birds start to sing a little different tune. I'm just sensing this great awakening happening in Mother Nature. So let's take 3 more full breaths here. And then start to bring your hands to the mat. If you've got a prop underneath you or a block underneath that left hip, go ahead and remove it, because now we're going to lean into that left hip. We're going to sweep the right leg around in front and take it to the outside of the left knee. Now I'm going to turn here just so that you can see me better, but go ahead and stay where you are. Okay. So you're going to plant the big toe mound of the right foot on the floor. Okay. Bring your right hand behind you. And then inhale, lift the left arm towards the sky to create some length in the spine. As you exhale, draw the navel in. We're going to start to twist to the right, hugging that right knee with the left arm. And then breathe in, lift through the heart. Exhale, twisting a little deeper. Let's pick up that right hip, scoot it back an inch or so, and then settle here. You have an option here if you'd like to extend the lower leg, if that feels more supportive. And just again, working with the breath, creating some expansion in the torso as you breathe in. And each time you exhale, just think of that as an opportunity to let something go, to clean out the corners of our minds and unnecessary stress or tension in the body and just release it with that exhale. And let's take 3 more full breaths in, full breaths out. And then slowly release the twist. And then we're going to bring that right foot over closer to the left hip. Maybe then trying to stack the knees. But we really want to have both sits bones grounded and both side bodies nice and long and even. So if you feel like you're leaning or it feels awkward, please extend the lower leg. Okay? Another option here is sometimes it feels nice to sit up on a prop. So you can sit on your block or your bolster, and sometimes that lift feels really nice. All right, so once you're settled in here to this shoelace shape, we're going to add a little neck stretch here. Okay, so we're going to take our left arm behind the back, and then we're going to drop left ear, right ear to right shoulder. Let me start over. I'm not mirroring you. Okay, we're going to take our left arm behind the low back. Maybe you can even grab a hold of the right arm here. So shoulders are drawing down, and then just gently tilt your head to the right. So right ear to right shoulder. So you should feel this nice stretch in the left side of the neck. Maybe even nodding the head a little bit if the movement feels good. Again, accessing that gallbladder meridian line here, which is running down the head and the side of the body. So now turn your chin down towards your right shoulder. That brings the stretch more to the back of the neck. Again, if it feels good, you can nod the head a little bit. And then lift your chin parallel to that right shoulder and slowly bring the head back to center. Now release that left arm from behind the back, sweep it up overhead, start to crawl your right hand away. And we're going to fold laterally over to the right. Keep the shoulders drawing down away from the ears. Keep your heart open and that top shoulder drawing back. You can press into this right hand a bit to ground the left sits bone and just feel these left ribs lifting up and away from the hip. Really nice side body stretch. And with your next inhale, press into that right hand, come all the way back up, release the left arm down. We're going to take the hands to the mat behind us, unwrap your legs, take your feet mat width apart, and just windshield wiper your knees side to side, nice and slow, just to release the hips a bit. Good. And then we're going to come back to our knees so that we can do that sequence on the other side. So finding table, again, maybe patting the knees if you're on a hard surface. And then we're going to take right foot forward to the outside of the right hand. And then walk the left knee back. So looking for this nice stretch through the front of the hip flexor, get into that psoas muscle. Okay. And then we're going to roll onto the outer edge of the right foot. So right knee opens up. We can stay here on the hands or perhaps lower down to the elbows or bring the elbows to a block. Find a place where you can settle in for a bit. Relax the head and neck. If the head and neck get tired sometimes, if you're on your elbows, it's nice to bring the hands together and just press the thumbs against the third eye for support. Or if you've got those blocks, you can always rest your head on blocks. And reconnect with the breath. Again, breathing into those places that feel tight and resistant, sending love and compassion to those tight spots, allowing them to open up and awaken in sync with Mother Nature. So as the earth begins to awaken, if we're tuned in to this natural cycle and we are open, we can also experience this awakening within ourselves. Awakening, inspiration, new energy, thoughts and ideas. Noticing when you come to your edge, and just breathe through it. So stay here for 3 more full breaths. And then come onto your hands. We're going to straighten that front leg for a moment to move the hips back, maybe lifting the toes on that right foot. And just bowing forward. Just stretch through the back of the leg and the hamstring. And then bending that right knee again, coming forward. We're now going to heel toe that right foot towards the left edge of the mat. Dropping right knee behind right wrist for pigeon. So again, a couple of options here. You can bring that bolster in underneath if you like using the bolster, or you can place a block underneath that right hip, or you can come onto your back and do the supine version of pigeon. Okay. Wherever you are, then allow yourself to settle in. So coming down to rest the head on a block or your stacked hands. Accessing that stretch in the outside of the right hip, right glute. closing the eyes, just allowing yourself to get heavy here in the hips. Make sure to relax your jaws and soften the face. And try to relax the muscles as much as possible in these poses. And we'll hold here for 3 more breaths. And then bring the hands back to the mat, lifting your torso. Let's move aside any props that we might be using. Lean into that right hip, and then we're going to sweep this left leg around and take the left foot to the outside of the right knee. So again, I'm going to turn around to face the screen. You can stay where you are. You want to ground that right big toe mound into the mat, have that foot close to the right knee. Okay, if you feel tilted or awkward, please extend the lower leg. It's another great option. And then we're gonna take our right fingertips to the floor behind us just to prop ourselves up. Sitting up nice and tall. Now inhale, sweep the left arm towards the sky. Breathe in, lengthening through the spine, and then exhale, draw navel to spine, start to twist to the left. Hug that left knee in with the right arm and start to take your gaze towards the wall behind you. With your next breath, find a little more lift through the heart. As you exhale, we're going to pick up that left hip, scoot it behind you an inch or so. And then, again, working with the breath here. So each time you breathe in, think of creating space and expansion in the body. As you exhale, let go of the stagnant energy. Let it be an opportunity to release, to clean out the mind and the body. Like we do our spring cleaning, we clean out our closets. This is our chance to clean out our minds and our bodies. Letting go of anything that no longer serves us. And take 3 more full breaths here. And then slowly start to unwind. Then we're going to take this left foot closer to the right hip. Adjust so that the knees stack and that both sits bones are grounded. So again, if you're feeling awkward or uneven, extend the lower leg, okay? Or you can prop yourself up on a block or bolster or folded blanket. And sometimes that lift gives you a little more freedom in the hips. So you might want to try that. Okay. And then we're going to take right arm behind the low back. Maybe you can grab a hold of that left arm even. And then we're just going to gently drop left ear to left shoulder. Finding that stretch in the right side of the neck. Maybe nodding the head a bit if that feels good. And then turning the chin down towards that left shoulder, inviting that stretch more to the back of the right side of the neck. And again, nodding might feel good, a little movement. And then lift your chin parallel to that left shoulder. And on your next breath in, just very gently bring it back to center. And then release the right arm. Take your left fingertips out on the floor beside you. We're going to reach the right arm towards the sky and then start to fold over to the left. So press into that left hand, ground the right sits bone. Open your heart towards the sky, drawing that right shoulder back, maybe even gazing up towards the sky. Feeling these right ribs lifting up and away from the hip. Lengthening out through that right arm. Breathing. And with your next inhale, reach the right arm towards the sky and then release the right arm down. And then take the hands to the mat behind you. We're going to unwrap the legs, take the feet mat width apart, and windshield wiper your knees side to side. Good. From here, we're going to come into dragonfly. So that's just a wide-legged forward fold. So you might want to turn to the side of your mat if you want to have your ankles or your heels, resting on your mat. I like to take a folded blanket underneath my seat just to lift me up a little bit. Okay. Taking the feet as wide apart as possible, feet flexed. Okay. And having the knees turning up towards the sky. So sometimes it's helpful to grab a hold of the thigh, turn inner thigh down, outer thigh up. Same thing on the other side. You might want a prop here as we fold forward. So something to rest your head on if possible. And this is an opportunity to be a little creative depending on your flexibility. Okay, so we're going to start to hinge through the hips, folding forward, resting your head on something if possible. So stacked blocks, or here's another nice prop setup that I like, kind of creating this little table with 2 blocks and a bolster, and then you come forward like so. If you're really tight, you can, and you have a bolster, you can even take the bolster on its tall end, Hopefully, you've got room to place the bottom of that bolster on your sticky mat, or it tends to slide away. But resting here, maybe just bringing palms face up. So again, your practice, your body, find the modification that works best for you, something that you're able to settle into stillness with for a bit. Try to keep the knees a little bit soft. We don't want to overextend the legs. Softening through the face. Closing your eyes here. Just notice again if your mind wanders to other things besides your practice, and just bring the awareness back to the breath. Always returning to the breath. The parts of the body that we're working. And let's take 3 more breaths here. And then begin to sit upright, setting your props aside. And then again, just lean back into the hands. I'm just going to kind of drag the feet together here and shake them out a bit. And then we're going to lay down on our backs. Have your blocks handy if you've got blocks or whatever you have. Okay. We're going to lay back. Let's draw the knees into the chest for a moment and just rock a little bit side to side. Just finding a little massage on the low back. And then we're going to come into a supported bridge from here. So bring your feet to the floor. Feet and knees hip width apart, arms resting alongside the body. Again, props handy. So blocks preferably, or if all you have is a bolster or a pillow, or like I said, a phone book, if you even know what that is. And then we're gonna press into the big toe mounds. We're gonna move dynamically a few times and then come into the supported bridge. So press into the big toe mounds. Take a deep breath in, tilt the pelvis forward slightly, so creating some space underneath the low back, okay? As you exhale, you're gonna press the low back down, flattening the low back to the floor. So tailbone tucks, we're still on the ground, okay? Let's just do a couple of pelvic tilts to start. So inhale, tilting the pelvis forward, exhale, flattening the low back. And just do that a couple more times. And when we come up into bridge, you want to make sure that you're not looking side to side. So if you want to watch me come into it before you join me so that you don't have to look at the screen when you're up there, you can. Just keep that in mind. So now exhale, flatten that low back. Inhale, lift the hips towards the sky. So again, moving dynamically for a bit first. Exhale, lower down nice and slow. See if you can touch low back to the mat before the tailbone. And then inhale, tilt the pelvis forward, creating that space under the low back. Exhale, flatten the back. Lift the hips. Exhale, lower, nice and slow. Inhale, tilt the pelvis forward. Exhale, flatten the low back. Inhale, lift the hips. This time we'll hold here. So roll the shoulders underneath the back. If you've got those props, you can do one block at various heights here. If you do the tallest height, it can be a little bit unstable. Okay, but you can do that. You can be at the lowest, or what I like to do is to stack 2 blocks if you've got them. Okay, that's nice and stable and gives me a nice lift. So once you've got the blocks and you want them to run alongside the hips, okay, instead of parallel to the spine, you want them parallel to the hips. And then we're just gonna rest here for a few moments. So seeing if we can release the pelvic floor a little bit. And then maybe walking the legs out for a little deeper stretch, if that feels okay to you. Another option is to take the arms overhead. So really nice full body stretch here. Any of those variations are fine. Find what works best for you, and then find that stillness. And if you feel stable on your props, you could try bringing one leg in, squeezing that knee in tight. That might add a little stretch to the extended leg. And then if you're doing that, release that leg out and draw the other knee in. And then release that leg. We'll stay here for 3 more breaths. And then walking the feet in, bringing the feet to the mat, knees bent if they're not already. And then take your time. When you're ready, I'm going to press into the feet and just gently lift the hips and slide the props out from underneath you, and then lower back down nice and slow. And then walk your feet mat width apart again, cactus your arms, and windshield wiper the knees side to side. And then drawing the knees into your chest. Give them a tight squeeze. Rock a little side to side. And then lift your head up, curling yourself into a tight little ball. And then inhale, we're going to stretch out, not to Shavasana just yet. Stretch out. We've got a couple more shapes to do here. We're going to do banana asana first for another lateral stretch. So you're going to reach your arms out overhead. Grab a hold of opposite elbow if it's accessible. If not, opposite wrist works. Okay. And then we're going to take our upper body and both feet to the left, coming into this banana shape. Make sure that you keep both shoulders and both hips grounded. So we're not rolling onto that left side. We're flat on our backs. Option to cross right ankle over left for a little extra stretch here. And then we're going to focus our breathing into that right side body, right ribs. So just imagining that we're creating a little more space between each one of the ribs, allowing a light, our inner light, to shine through like rays of sun. Just closing your eyes and settling here for a bit. Trying to relax the body as much as possible. And holding here for 3 more full breaths. And then making your way back to center. Let's take the other arm on top, so switching the position of the arms. And then we'll take the upper body to the right, both feet to the right, again, keeping hips, both shoulders grounded. Option to cross left ankle over right. And then breathing into this right side body stretch, left ribs, left side body. And let's hold here for 3 more deep breaths. And then coming back to center. And then bending your knees. Taking your arms out from the shoulders. We're going to come into one final supine twist before our Shavasana and our guided meditation. So pick up your hips, take them 2 inches to the right, and then cross right knee over left knee. And then we're going to drop the knees to the left. So your gaze is just up at the sky. Your right arm is back behind you. Maybe it's even floating a little bit. So you might feel that shoulder stretch as well. If you have a different twist in mind or you don't like wrapping the legs, feel free to modify. Okay, taking any kind of twist here. And then close your eyes and just begin to surrender. Let go of effort. Take a big, expansive breath in. Feel yourself creating that space in the body. Exhale, letting go, releasing that old, stagnant winter energy. Making room for something new, a new project, a new experience, a new perspective. And we'll hold here for 3 more full breaths. And then gently make your way back to center. Realign yourself along the midline of your mat. And then we're going to pick up the hips, scoot them a couple inches to the left, cross left knee over right knee, and then drop your knees to the right. So again, feel free to modify, taking any kind of twist here, and then just allowing yourself to surrender and release the effort. Close your eyes, take a big expansive breath in, creating that space, and then let it go. And we'll stay here for 3 more breaths. And then coming back to center, realigning yourself along the midline of your mat, maybe taking another windshield wiper or hugging the knees in and rocking side to side. Any final bit of movement here. And then as you're ready, stretching out for Shavasana. So taking the legs out long and wide, turning the palms up towards the sky, supporting yourself in any way. So maybe like a bolster under the knees or a blanket under the head, or maybe you want to cover yourself with the blanket to stay warm. Just taking a few moments to get comfortable. It's going to be, we're going to stay in Shavasana for a little longer than usual. And again, I'm going to walk you through a little guided meditation as you rest. So once you're settled, close the eyes. And now imagine yourself walking along a path in the woods. Your feet are bare. The ground is cool and soft beneath your feet. The warm rays of the sun shine through the bare limbs of the trees all around you. The scent of spring is in the air. You notice a large tree up ahead, a very unusual tree. You approach it and admire its wood. Your eyes are drawn to its roots, embraced by the earth, like two lives intertwined. Your gaze slowly moves up the trunk of the tree. You reach out and touch the bark. The rough and jagged upward flow of the wood reveals a history. Each characteristic groove holds a secret story of its past. The deepest scars ooze a sense of accomplishment and compassion. Your gaze continues upward and eventually outward as the tree begins to express itself into branches, as if it's reaching towards something without hesitation. And yet it stays firmly grounded through its roots. And there's one particular branch that draws your attention. You follow its path to the very end, and for a moment, you feel disappointed that there is nothing more. But then you spot the tiniest speck of green, sparkling in the sunlight, a bud, a sign of new life. What you thought was the end is really just the beginning. A sign of transformation. But what will it become? You have no idea what kind of tree this is or what form the bud will take. So you get to decide. Nurture this tree with positive thoughts and energy. Be patient. Use your imagination to cultivate a leaf or flower of your own liking. Watch it grow and take shape in your mind's eye. What does it look like? What color and shape is it? What does it feel like? Does it have a fragrance? What does it reveal to you? And then just allow your mind to settle into stillness. Doing absolutely nothing except witnessing yourself breathing. I invite you to stay here in Shavasana for as long as you'd like. If you feel rested and restored, take a deep breath in. Exhale through the mouth. Start to find small movements to awaken the body, perhaps wiggling fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Gently rocking your head side to side, opening the mouth and wiggling the jaw. Reaching the arms overhead, finding one more long stretch. Lengthening through one side of the body, then the other, and then both. And slowly drawing the knees in as you roll to one side, coming into a fetal position for a few more moments. Resting here in peace and stillness. savoring these last few moments of your practice. And then, as if reawakening again in connection with the earth's energy, keep the eyes closed, begin to rise back to seated, moving slowly and mindfully. Coming to a seat with hands at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I hope you have a wonderful spring. Namaste.